spend 1 minute on Snow White and how it totally imploded at the box office this weekend? It was so delicious. The thing they spent $170 million to make the thing, and it had the lowest opening, under $50 million, of any of these live action Disney remakes that they've ever had. Even the one that was their worst, Dumbo, did better than this has done.
RachelZegler has been humbled. The lead actress in Disney's Snow White remake has been brought right back down to earth after making some very tone-deaf comments that haven't translated well amid the horror opening weekend of the movie.
RachelZegler's Hollywood journey seems to be coming to an end, and shockingly, it's all happening just as it was starting. After Snow White became Disney's biggest box office disaster ever, the studio appears to be cutting ties with her. What's worse? Word is, no one in the industry wants to collaborate with her now. So how did someone who once seemed full of promise manage to ruin her shot with one of the most iconic films of all time? Let's take a closer look at how Rachel's attitude and comments may have cost her everything.
Narcissist.
As many of you know, Disney's new Snow White remake hit theaters recently, and to no one's surprise, it bombed hard. The film only brought in $43 million in its opening weekend in the US, despite having a massive $270 million production budget. To put that into perspective, Disney's The Lion King 2019 made $191 million during its opening weekend domestically, and Beauty and the Beast 2017 pulled in $174 million. But from the very start, this movie was plagued with problems. There was an actors' strike, a COVID-19 outbreak, and even a fire on set that shut down production for a while. And then came the RachelZegler situation, which completely overshadowed everything else. You know the saying, there's no such thing as bad publicity? Well, Rachel proved that wrong. She practically guaranteed the movie would flop. And that's not just my opinion, go check out the reviews. People were furious with her even before the film premiered, and things only got worse afterward. The Snow White remake is being called one of the worst-reviewed Disney films in recent years. It received a terrible Rotten Tomatoes score and only a B+ cinema score, shockingly low for a Disney fairy tale film. For comparison, Frozen got an A and Mufasa earned an A+. Many people agree that RachelZegler herself was the biggest reason the movie tanked. From the moment she was announced as the lead, controversy followed. Now, Hollywood has always had its fair share of dramatic personalities.
Who hates when I win? The winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her. And I can only hope that despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them.
But Rachel acted like she was somehow bigger than Disney itself. During the press tour, she gave off the impression that she thought she was reinventing Snow White, and that she was simply above the role. Nearly every interview, she took jabs at the original 1937 animated film, calling it outdated. Let's be real, she was clearly holding back even more critical thoughts. And that rubbed fans the wrong way. Remember, Snow White isn't just any Disney character. She helped launch Disney's legacy. The original film remains one of the highest-grossing animated films of all time, adjusted for inflation. So for Rachel to repeatedly criticize such a beloved classic was never going to sit well with audiences. Sure, we understand she wanted to bring a fresh perspective to the story, but she just kept making things worse. In an interview with Variety, she even called the original Snow White creepy. Rachel also seemed determined to change the entire essence of the character. It didn't feel like she was trying to modernize Snow White, it felt like she wanted to make a totally different movie. She also criticized the love story at the center of the original film. In an interview with Extra TV, she said, "A guy that literally stalks her. Weird. We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story just because we cast a guy in the movie. Andrew Burnap, great dude. But it's really not about the love story at all, which is really wonderful." That particular comment offended a lot of people, including David Halehan, the son of David Hand, the supervising director of the original Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. He felt Rachel had completely disrespected the legacy of Walt Disney and his father's work.
That was
So no Prince or a different kind of Prince?
We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story just because, like, we cast a guy in the movie.
Right.
Andrew Burnap, great dude.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that I think everyone's going to have their assumptions about what it's actually going to be, but it's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. And whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby. But it's one of those.
The backlash got so intense that Disney had to step in and try to fix things. Rachel was pressured to walk back her comments, leading to another interview with Variety where she said, "I would never want to box someone in and say if you want love then you can't work, or if you want to work then you can't have a family. It's not true. It's never been true. It can be very upsetting when things get taken out of context or jokes don't land. The love story is very integral. A lot of people wrote that we weren't doing that storyline anymore. We were always doing that. It just wasn't what we were talking about on that day." You'd think that after all the backlash, Rachel might pause and take a softer approach moving forward. But instead, she went even further and got political, criticizing Donald Trump after his re-election. Now, no matter what your political stance is, if you're already a polarizing figure in Hollywood, going after a large group of voters, especially the MAGA crowd, is a bold and risky move. But Rachel went for it anyway. She posted on Instagram, "May Trump supporters and Trump voters and Trump himself never know peace." Then she followed that up with, "There is also a deep, deep sickness in this country that is shown in the sheer amount of people who showed up for this man who threatens our democracy. It is terrifying. There is no help, no counsel in any of them. I could go on. I won't. I feel sad. You probably do too. F this. And finally, F Donald Trump." Naturally, this didn't end well. The MAGA community came for her instantly, calling for Disney to fire RachelZegler. Many threatened to boycott the movie if Disney kept her on. The public pressure grew so intense that Rachel had to apologize yet again, saying, "Hi everyone. I would like to sincerely apologize for the election post I shared on my Instagram last week. I let my emotions get the best of me. Hatred and anger have caused us to move further and further away from peace and understanding, and I am sorry I contributed to the negative discourse." She continued, "This week has been emotional for so many of us, but I firmly believe that everyone has the right to their opinion, even when it differs from my own. I am committed to contributing positively toward a better tomorrow."
We had RachelZegler on the docket is she's an asshole. So she came out and took a large dump on half of the country, everyone who voted for Trump. So I attacked her, and then she came out and she said, "I apologize. Like I went too far." But it wasn't sincere.
At that point, Disney had no choice but to go into full damage control mode. They were already under heavy criticism for the film itself, and it was far too late to recast Rachel. So their new strategy? Try to fix her public image. But no matter how hard they tried, nothing worked. Every time an article or interview tried to paint Rachel as sweet or misunderstood, people flooded the comments with reminders of all the arrogant or dismissive things she'd said. And to be honest, Rachel didn't help her own case. Remember when she said, "If I'm going to stand there for 18 hours in a dress as an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour." That comment didn't sit well with fans either.
"I'm gonna stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess. I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online."
Ma'am, it is not like you are Tom Cruise risking your life with every film doing these stunts. It is not like you are Stallone doing Rambo. It's not like you are Jim Caviezel on The Passion of Christ and had your shoulder dislocated and lightning strike you and almost...
Every time Disney put out a feel-good article or interview to make Rachel seem more relatable and warm, the public response was the same. The comments would flood with reminders of all the times she had come off as rude, arrogant, or completely out of touch. And honestly, there were plenty of examples.
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so.
As the movie's release date approached, Disney finally realized Rachel's reputation was beyond repair. So they scrapped the usual red carpet premiere with press interviews and went with a stripped-down event instead. According to Martin Kleba, who played Grumpy in the film, Disney was so worried about Rachel causing more problems that they kept the event low-key. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Martin said, "It's going to be at the El Capitan Theater, which is cool, but it's basically just going to be a pre-party, watch the movie, and that's it. There's not going to be this whole hoopla of Disney's first effing movie they ever made." Because of all this controversy, they're afraid of the blowback from different people in society.
Alex, what has been the reaction to Disney's latest expensive own goal?
Well, the reaction has been absolutely horrible. It is the worst box office from a Disney live-action remake that they've ever done in Dumbo.
And just as predicted, the movie completely flopped. It only made around $87 million globally, which is terrible for such a high-budget film, especially one that had so many reshoots. Now there's a lot of chatter in Hollywood about what to do with RachelZegler. Rumor is, no one wants to work with her anymore because she's seen as too risky. In the span of one movie, she went from being a rising star to being labeled as the most difficult actress in Hollywood. It's honestly wild. But what do you think? Is RachelZegler beyond saving, or is she just misunderstood? Let me know what you think in the comments. Until next time, bye!